What's good? It's Woog. We have the return of a young boxing superstar after a devastating collision with the Tank. We've got Ryan Garcia, 23 wins and 1 loss, taking on Oscar Duarte, 26 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. Both Ryan Garcia and Oscar Duarte have high KO percentages. 19 of Ryan Garcia's 23 wins are via knockout, and 21 out of Oscar Duarte's 26 wins are by knockout. Now, this will be Ryan Garcia's official divisional debut at 140. I mean, the last time he actually fought a 135 fight was against Luke Campbell, Ryan Garcia's best win, and that was early 2021. Everything since that has usually been a catchweight. And this fight against Oscar Duarte is going to be against a lightweight. Oscar Duarte's fight at lightweight is coming up to 140. So this still isn't a true test on Ryan Garcia's viability against the true 140 guys. In this case, Ryan Garcia is still looking at himself as a new 140. So I'm sure that in the scheduling, they wanted a guy who wasn't a proven tough 140, but a pretty tough, untested against the elite, but a seemingly tough and hard-hitting lightweight now coming up to 140. So that's the caveat in this one. And you know, I'm still not sure what to make of Ryan Garcia. Like, we know he's one of the more famous boxers in the sport. We know that he was good enough to beat Luke Campbell. We know that he was not good enough to beat Gervonta Davis, but I don't know how he would do against, the B+, A- guys at 135 or at 140. There has just been such an unevenness in his career to where, he was knocking out Romero Duno and Francisco Fonseca, looking very good when he was on the upswing. And this is before the fight against Luke Campbell. So he was, scoring some very impressive knockouts against, just viable opponents. He was looking like, okay, this guy might be the truth. We know that, on social media, his hand speed and power looked scintillating, but as it was getting tested against better and better guys, it looked like that theory was holding. So then he has that, big fight, big step up against Luke Campbell, gets dropped in the fight, battles back and stops Luke Campbell with a nice body shot in the 7th round. It's like, okay, King Ryan has basically arrived. So then he took a big break from boxing, like over a year out of the ring due to mental health issues. So then he comes back and fights those catchweight fights against Emmanuel Tego, who was a 130 and a 135 guy. And then against Javier Fortuna, who was at his best, like at featherweight, 126, and then fight at 130. And now he's fighting Ryan Garcia above 135. So it's tough really, what to make of that. I did think that I saw some skill development and some improvements, sweet science-wise, from Ryan Garcia. And this is around the time he had hired Joe Goosen to become his head trainer after training with Eddie Reynoso, Canelo's trainer before that. And so what did I see? I mean, against Emmanuel Tego, who was much smaller than Ryan Garcia, but it was an uneventful fight. It left a lot to be desired, but I did see Ryan Garcia control that fight behind a jab. And then against Javier Fortuna, I saw him control the fight largely with a lead right hand. It wasn't even his signature electric left hook that controlled that fight against Fortuna. And Fortuna was a southpaw, so that's where the right hand for Ryan Garcia really came in handy. I mean, to the point where the public was largely split on how Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia was going to play out. Yeah, after we see the fight, we see how it played out. It's like, oh yeah, Ryan Garcia didn't belong in the ring with Tank Davis, but it's like, no, a lot of people thought that Ryan Garcia was very viable at an elite level. And if you listen to some of the praise that his trainer, Joe Goosen, which you would expect your trainer to heap praise upon you, but I mean, it sounded like hyperbole when you listen to how much Joe Goosen was fawning over Ryan Garcia and talking about how he was just stopping his sparring partners and how he had never seen anybody look this impressive in sparring. You're just wondering, okay, what's fact and what's fiction? But going into that fight against Tank Davis, you had Chris Mannix picking Ryan Garcia. You had Paulie Malignaggi picking Ryan Garcia. So don't make too much out of the Monday morning quarterbacking in how people reassess their opinion of a fighter after, they get stopped by, arguably one of the 5 or so hardest hitting fighters pound for pound in the sport with the vicious body shot. Yeah, it looked like Ryan Garcia maybe could have gotten up, but he got sank by that body shot, and he was on his knee, watched the ref count to 10, didn't want any more at that point. And, to Ryan Garcia's credit, he did survive that, what was it, a third round knockdown at the hands of Tank Davis when Tank drilled him with that counter punch, left hand, dropped Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia got up from that one. And yes, Ryan Garcia was head over heels in pursuing Tank Davis, which, it was pretty crazy. In the first round, it looked like, damn, is there going to be something to this when he was just applying that intense pressure on Tank Davis? I was wondering, because I saw Tank Davis like holding, like, hey, whoa, slow down there. I was wondering how that pressure was gonna play out over time. But yeah, I think it was the third round where Tank Davis caught Ryan Garcia coming in with that beautifully placed, beautifully timed left hand as Ryan Garcia was coming in. But I thought it took a lot of guts for Ryan Garcia to get that aggressive against Tank Davis. But yeah, it ended up not working well for him. So there's a lot of recalibrating. Against opinion-wise, Ryan Garcia has since fired Joe Goossen, which I found to be kind of puzzling. Like, what was the reason? I still don't know what the actual reason for that firing was. Was it because Joe Goossen seemed to be a little too team Ryan Garcia and, giving him too much latitude to where it sounds like Ryan Garcia wasn't taking the most professional approach to his training and wasn't super diligent, but was still not really getting held to task by Joe Goossen? I heard some rumblings of that, but again, I don't know what's what, so I can't say that with any certainty. Well, Ryan Garcia is now getting trained by Derek James, and they don't play out there. Like, I don't see Derek James like really letting Ryan Garcia goof off or not show up to training or show up way late and just be okay with that, even though this hasn't been Derek James's best year because of the losses for Errol Spence Jr. and then for Jermell Charlo against Canelo, and then Frank Martin pulling out of that fight against Shakur Stevenson. But Derek James has had a couple successful fights with Anthony Joshua. I know Joshua is going with Ben Davison for this upcoming Otto Wallin fight. And Derek James was the trainer of the year in 2022. So he is obviously an excellent trainer. And so he's going to be teamed up with Ryan Garcia for this fight against Oscar Duarte. But, I don't want to discount those improvements that I thought I saw with Ryan Garcia, at least before that fight against Gervonta Davis. We know Ryan Garcia's got extraordinary punching power, and he's got, very fast hands. I think he's going to have a big speed advantage over Oscar Duarte. But I just wonder where that improvement with the right hand is going to go. Like, I thought that right hand might be a key ingredient if he was going to have success against Tank Davis. I didn't see too much of that right hand coming out of the holster in an effective way against Tank. But here, his opponent, Oscar Duarte, is a hard hitter. Again, he's a lightweight who's coming up to 140. He wasn't tested against the best opponents at 135. I would say his best opponent might have been Alex Martin, who was a southpaw, but wasn't a power puncher, was kind of a sweet scientist who was he was a mover who was very good defensively, but he didn't have a ton of offense. So he wasn't really able to get too much of Oscar Duarte's respect. Duarte's one loss came against Adrian Estrella. That was back in 2019, several fights ago. And it was a split decision that was a little bit controversial. A lot of people who saw that fight thought that Oscar Duarte deserved the win there. But Duarte, he's a hard puncher. He's a little bit of a slow starter. He starts to pick up the intensity. He loads up on a lot of his shots. Like, a lot of people who have critique of his game say that he should mix it up a little bit more. Take something off the fastball to throw sometimes more punches and then mix in the hard shots with the shots that are just meant to be placeholders, essentially. One thing that I saw from Oscar Duarte, at least against Alex Martin, again, a southpaw, was that he would double up on a lot of the hard right hands that he was throwing. So he would throw kind of it wasn't a straight right. He does have a straight right, but it was a little bit of a right hook. And this is from a orthodox fighter where the right's the backhand. So it wasn't a straight shot. It wasn't an overhand shot, but it was kind of like a wide right hand. But he would double up on it to basically close the distance. So if the opponent is kind of expecting the more predictable punch pattern of left, right, well, when you start doubling up or even tripling up with one hand, you're able to throw that predictability off. So then the opponent who's able to defend the left, right, almost in their sleep because it's so expected. When you throw a double right-handed power punch, 1, two, you're throwing that off to where if the guy comes back here, he's gonna eat that second shot. And that double right hand ended up hurting and then dropping Alex Martin. It was devastating at the end of the day against Alex Martin. And again, Oscar Duarte is a pretty hard puncher. He's a physical guy too. You look at how he's built, shoulders pretty broad, physical guy. He doesn't mind getting in the clinch and kind of moving you around a bit. Again, not the fastest starter, but he picks it up over time. And especially as he starts getting more comfortable throwing punches and he starts being able to not respect your power as much, he starts to take control of the fight, and he's gotten his last several opponents out of there via knockout. So as I'm sizing up Ryan Garcia versus Oscar Duarte, look, Oscar Duarte is going to have to respect Ryan Garcia's power. If Duarte approaches Garcia like he approaches a lot of his opponents, he's going to get knocked out, like straight up. So I'm just wondering how he's going to start closing the distance against Ryan Garcia. And one thing that I found interesting about the measurables between the two, on paper, and take note of this because this is one of those little deceptive things if you're relying too much on what BoxRec or Wikipedia is telling you. Ryan Garcia is listed at like 5'8.5". Oscar Duarte is listed at 5'9". But if you look at their face-off, shortly after the fight was announced and they had their press conference, Ryan Garcia is looking down at Oscar Duarte. Like he looks like he's got at least like a couple inches on him. So Oscar Duarte, although he's listed as a slightly taller fighter by a half an inch, no, that's bogus. Given the eyeball test, Ryan Garcia is clearly the taller fighter between the two. And I don't know what to make of the reach because of that discrepancy between what I'm seeing on BoxRec and what I'm seeing with my own two eyes, because Oscar Duarte is also listed as having a 1-inch reach advantage over Ryan Garcia. 71 inches for Duarte to 70 inches for Ryan Garcia. But if I can't believe the height, that was a little play on Public Enemy's Don't Believe the Hype. Don't believe the height, because Ryan Garcia is taller based on what I'm seeing than Oscar Duarte. So I don't know whether to believe that Oscar Duarte holds a 1-inch reach advantage over Ryan Garcia. And these things matter when you're sizing up and you're trying to look at how this fight is likely to play out. Again, Oscar Duarte is not a fast starter, and he's not going to be able to just bully Ryan Garcia like he bullies a lot of his opponents, because you don't want to just walk in on Ryan Garcia. Duarte's got decent defense, but he's pretty much there to get hit. And because he doesn't have the fastest hands, with Ryan Garcia's hand speed, I just see there being a lot of opportunities for Ryan Garcia to fire his shots between Duarte's punches. So as Duarte's coming in, sometimes with a high guard, sometimes his hands like a little bit more at chin and chest level. If he is loading up on his shots against Ryan Garcia pulls that trigger pretty quickly, assuming he's not gun shy from that fight against Gervonta Davis, which I don't assume that he will be. Although when you hear Ryan Garcia talk, it's just always one of those things where it's like, I don't make too much of it. He always comes with this, hey, now I'm serious. Now I've rekindled my love for the sport. Now I'm really going to take things seriously. Like, sometimes when fighters talk like that, I don't know whether they're trying to convince the public or convince themselves. So I don't make too much of that. But he is training with Derek James, and I do think that he's going to have a responsible construct, and he's going to be working behind the jab. If my eyes don't fail me and Ryan Garcia is the taller fighter, it's going to be incumbent on Oscar Duarte to close the distance. So how does he get past Ryan Garcia's jab? And will Ryan Garcia be able to bring that right hand back to life against an orthodox fighter, not a southpaw, where throwing a right hand lead makes more sense against a southpaw? Will he be able to let that right hand go against the orthodox Oscar Duarte, who's going to be looking for opportunities to let his own right hand go? I think Ryan Garcia is going to have a better jab between the two. He's going to be the quicker between the two. And because Oscar Duarte, I think, is going to be forced to be more patient, because look, if he's not patient against Ryan Garcia, this might be a quicker than expected night with Ryan Garcia winning by knockout. But if you look at the odds, like Ryan Garcia is the favorite. He's like a 3-1, 4-1 favorite, but it's not like the odds aren't disrespectfully lopsided. So the public and the odds makers, they are seeing Oscar Duarte as having a chance against Ryan Garcia. And again, it's largely because we haven't seen Ryan Garcia tested against a lot of quality opponents. Although he, again, has fought guys who have fought other good fighters, like Fonseca has fought other good fighters. Romero Duno has fought, like, these guys have fought like Gervonta Davis. Jason Velez has fought some other good quality opponents. And then, of course, Luke Campbell. And if you go deep into Ryan Garcia's, career, a few years back, I remember seeing him fight Carlos Morales, where Ryan Garcia won a majority decision. This was back in 2018. And again, I think Ryan Garcia has improved since this, but Carlos Morales applied a pressure that Garcia was totally uncomfortable with. And since Garcia wasn't able to get Morales out of there, it ended up being a pretty grueling and uncomfortable fight for Ryan Garcia. Like, if you want to see Ryan Garcia struggling early in his career, watch his fight against Carlos Morales. I do see some parallels between Oscar Duarte and Morales, especially if Oscar Duarte is comfortable enough to come in and increase his pressure without getting badly hurt. So if we get to the point of the fight where it's like the fourth round and Ryan Garcia hasn't asserted control behind a jab and hasn't made Oscar Duarte pay for coming in, we might be in for an interesting fight to where down the stretch in the middle rounds and so we might see Ryan Garcia get badly tested or even hurt. But I just think that it's more likely that Ryan Garcia at some point is able to drop Oscar Duarte as Duarte comes in. Again, I haven't seen Oscar Duarte fight somebody with the hand speed combined with the power of Ryan Garcia. Again, it's one thing to fight slick guys like Alex Martin who are looking to be super elusive defensively but aren't making you pay for coming in. Alex Martin was not making Oscar Duarte pay, nor was D'Angelo Keys, nor was Javier Franco. These guys were either slow, or if they weren't slow, they weren't power punches. Ryan Garcia is one of those unicorns who's got both. Again, we'll see if his chin gets tested here and if Duarte is able to hit him with some hard right hands and really apply that pressure. We'll see how Ryan Garcia deals with it. But I know one way that he could potentially deal with it involves punching between Oscar Duarte's punches and finding opportunities where the slower Oscar Duarte gets caught slipping as he comes in. Now, it's not like Ryan Garcia has great feet where he moves around a lot. He's pretty flat-footed. Like, if you compare him to his, promoter, Oscar De La Hoya, you watch early De La Hoya fights when he was at lightweight in 130 and even 140, watch how his feet used to move and how he would work that lead left hand. He would throw that jab and turn it over into little hooks. And, he would just devastate guys. Even largely being a one-handed-ish fighter, his feet allowed him to get away with that. Ryan Garcia is much more wide stance, sometimes even narrow stance, but still flat-footed than his mentor, his contentious mentor, Oscar De La Hoya. So he is really reliant on the speed of that hook to be the mitigating factor and to be the deterrent on keeping his opponents at bay. Yes, if he does have a clear height advantage, he can take the step back and start throwing that jab or right hand to maintain range. But we'll see what the reaches and heights look like once these guys are in the ring. I just suspect that Ryan Garcia is going to look like the bigger fighter between the two. And if it does look like Oscar Duarte has to come in and do something to get around Ryan Garcia's jab, I just think he's going to have a tough time coming in. Or if he starts getting over pursuant, he's going to get caught with that damn hook and put on his butt. Now, I was thinking about taking Ryan Garcia via knockout because this is a 12-round fight. That 36 minutes is a long time to be in there with Ryan Garcia, and I kind of feel like something's got to give, given both of these guys' styles. But, Ryan Garcia is training with Derek James, and I feel like as he's going to be picking up new tools, he's going to be patiently applying them. And I think that he's basically going to largely outbox Oscar Duarte. And I think that Duarte, even if he suffers a knockdown, I think that he might be durable enough. Now, I haven't seen him really get a lot of punches put on him where he's getting hit as hard as Ryan Garcia is going to hit him. So maybe he puts Duarte out. And if he does, that'll be a great moment for Ryan Garcia. And I'm sure that would propel him into another big fight, hopefully against a top, 140 guy. But I also think that it's very possible that Ryan Garcia fights a relatively patient fight and that Oscar Duarte doesn't come in guns blazing head over heels and does respect Ryan Garcia's power and instead loses via wide decision. I'm going to go with Ryan Garcia winning via decision over Oscar Duarte. I think it's going to be something like 9 rounds to 3, 8 rounds to 4. I think it's going to be a pretty comfortable win, but I would be pretty surprised if Oscar Duarte beats Ryan Garcia, even if we still have a lot of questions for Ryan Garcia. But yeah, I'm going to take him in this one to win via decision with his first outing under the tutelage of Derrick James. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts on this one are, Ryan Garcia versus Oscar Duarte. And if Ryan Garcia gets past Duarte, what do you see next for him at 140? Do you see him fighting the winner of Devin Haney and Regis Prograis, or should I say Prograis versus Devin Haney for Prograis' WBC belt? Do you see Ryan Garcia maybe fighting Josh Taylor? I don't know what's in Josh Taylor's future other than a potential rematch against Jack Catterall. Does Ryan Garcia get that, Rolly Romero versus maybe the winner of Ishmael Barroso and O'Hara Davies, where Rolly Romero being who I see as the lesser of the 4 champions at 140. I think he inexplicably holds the WBA 140-pound title, Rolly Romero. So depending on what they do with him and then the winner of O'Hara Davies and Ishmael Barroso, is there a lane for Ryan Garcia to jump to the front of the line and compete for a WBA belt? I think that that's possible. I would love to see him compete against Teofimo Lopez for the WBO belt, but I heard that Teofimo Lopez was offered the fight but didn't like the amount of money that he was offered to fight Ryan Garcia, so he turned it down. Maybe if they could work something out business-wise, that could be viable. The IBF title is held by Subriel Matias, who continues to impress, especially after that stoppage over Ergashev. Does Ryan Garcia take on Subriel Matias? I don't see that as being likely because, Ryan Garcia early in his career said that the belts don't matter as much as, the big names and the money and other things, even though Ryan Garcia is now saying that money isn't everything. And, he's going to, take a different approach to the sport than just going for the money or making it about the money and his fame and social media. I don't want to get into Ryan Garcia's rhetoric or commentary on, on how he's viewing the sport. I don't want to look too deeply into that. All I want to say is I don't see Ryan Garcia fighting Subriel Matias. I would be impressed if they make that fight because of Subriel Matias's lack of name recognition and the fact that he is just a super tough, hard-hitting, seemingly very durable, just a nightmare of an opponent type of fighter. I don't see that one happening. I see Teofimo Lopez or even the winner of Prograis and Haney as being more likely. But, maybe Rolly Romero or O'Hara Davies or Ishmael Barroso, whoever, might be the most likely. Let me know your thoughts as the landscape at 140 starts to really take shape. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.